morning! Morning has broken, and we are your consecrated hosts. Surprise, Jonathan, wake up! This is Jonathan. He's consecrated by baptism.
This is Father Jeff. He's consecrated by holy orders.
Well, thank you so much. How you doing today?
You I thought it was going to just be a silent show for a minute.
There we are.
We are here.
We are here. Thursday, September 24th. What's new? What's exciting? What are you doing?
I keep falling asleep in random places in my house.
That's very odd, Jonathan.
It is very odd.
A touch of narcolepsy?
No.
Is it avoidance? Is this what's happening? Should we analyze this morning?
No, it's exhaustion.
What's happening?
So, when the kids get to sleep, is it
at
time
11:30 at night?
No, with school they have to actually get to bed at a decent hour. So like 9:30 or 10.
These are like wee ones. 9:30, 10 o'clock, decent hour. Jonathan.
No, before we moved, we had got him to start going to bed and like going to sleep by 9:30.
Okay.
Which is a lot better than it had been in the summer.
Okay.
But now with the move and everything else, everything's thrown off a little bit again. I think I still went to bed about 10 yesterday.
Yikes.
Or to sleep at about 10.
Sure.
But so then I can actually start getting some work done and doing some things around the house.
At 10 o'clock, we start getting work done.
And so a few nights ago, I fell asleep on the recliner, woke up in pain. Well, this was over the weekend. So my two boys had fallen asleep in the basement, and I was on the recliner, just taking a short break. And then at some point, Jeremiah got up on my lap, and he was on me on the recliner. And then 6 o'clock comes, and I'm in pain.
6 o'clock a.m.
A.m.
All night on the recliner.
All night on the recliner. So I get up and go to bed
Oh
at 6 o'clock. And then, so last night, I was working on some stuff in the living room. Got on the couch for a little, sat down on the couch to look at something really quick. 3 a.m. I woke up.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, just at least I'm falling asleep on furniture.
Does Genevieve just leave you there? She's like, he's good out there. I'm not gonna wake him up and have him come to bed.
She was asleep already.
I see. She at least has some common sense. I'm getting tired. I'm going to go to bed.
I think this is the end of it for me. No more. I'm putting my foot down.
Well, there it is, folks. You heard it here first. Jonathan is a new man. Genevieve is sending home a new man.
It's true. I'm a changed man.
A changed person. Well, a move will do that to you.
It will.
Yeah.
That just means we're getting closer and things are up on the walls.
No, that's good. Once things start feeling like home, you can settle in. I mean, that's really important.
Yesterday I was looking for a bowl. It took till the fifth cabinet.
Oh, wow.
But I found the bowl.
That's a good thing. It's like, I know it's here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think it's important to have that space that's comfortable, that you know where things are, and it feels like home. You know, that's always, when I come into a new rectory, like, you know, when I moved here, it's important to get to know every nook and cranny. So it's like, you know, I want to do a big, deep clean of the space, just because it's like, first of all, it makes you like open every cupboard, every drawer, take everything out, see what's here, you know, put it all back in now the way that I'm going to live in the space, and then start putting your stuff up around, and just kind of, it's like nesting.
Yeah, I didn't think about it because you inherit a lot of things.
There's a lot of stuff already here. You know, we don't own gobs and gobs of things. And I suppose you could. I suppose there's some priests that, you know, need multiple moving vans or whatnot when they go from place to place. Yeah, for the most part, I don't have a whole lot of furniture. I've got a few things. And then I've got pictures and books and, I guess, clothes.
Little dogs.
Little dogs that kind of live in my house somewhere. And, yeah, so I've got a few things like that. So you got to see what's here. What am I moving into, and what did they apparently not think to stock the house with?
Yeah, the life of a priest.
It's crazy. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, maybe we should dive into Screwtape letters, because we got some good stuff today. Oh my gosh, this is a good chapter, I think, anyway.
It's something. It's
It's all about you.
It is all about, I mean, you brought us there.
Here we go. This is all about marriage and the marriage relationship and what it is, and more importantly, what it is not.
Yeah.
I think Screwtape really does a good job here highlighting what marriage is not. And it's amazing to see just how prevalent this feeling is in the world today.
Right, and it's shocking again to see how we think of it as something new. And in some ways it's maybe more drastic after the sexual revolution, but this was before all of that.
This was written 60 years ago, 60 years ago, and this is before the sexual revolution. Yeah. But it really does kind of highlight the things that are leading up to that, and maybe some things that have always been embedded in human nature.
I think that's the key.
These are the eternal temptations and the eternal things that we struggle with and are trying to work out. So let's dive in. So he immediately begins talking about the notion of sexual temptation, and he says, if your man went to college, sexual temptation is like a thing, and blah 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 blah. And he said, the human beings are going to figure this out, and we are constantly using it to knock them on their butts, but and we find it considerably tedious. Because remember, the spirits, as we've learned in this book, are so not concerned about our bodies. They are pure spirit and regard the human person, the flesh of our bodies, as being deplorable.
Yeah.
That icky, fleshy stuff that they have, and now we have to deal with this whole sexual stuff. I would rather just get to the soul and suck the soul out of that body. But sometimes we need to use this body to draw that soul away.
Yeah. Well, they never had a body, so they don't understand it, and it just is...
Right.
It just makes it really difficult and complicated. And blah.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, fine. So here's the dilemma. The enemy's demand, God's demand for human beings, takes a dilemma for human beings. Either complete abstinence or unmitigated monogamy. That God demands one or the other, complete abstinence or monogamy. And that puts the human being in a dilemma because he's got all of these feelings, she's got all of these passions, there's all of this stuff going on inside of them, and they just can't do whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah. One or the other.
One or the other. So he says, ever since our fathers' first great victory, we've rendered the former, complete abstinence, very difficult for them. What is he referring to there? All the way back to the fall. That when Adam and Eve were created in perfect relationship with one another, when the evil one tempted them out of paradise and to lose that innocence, then one of the effects of that was, we hear in Genesis chapter 3, when God speaks to them, well, now, he says to Eve, you will crave your husband and he will exercise dominion over you. That now there is no longer an equality in that relationship. There is something broken in that relationship, and there is going to be this urge for the other, and yet it doesn't always play out in an equal way because that relationship has been shattered in some way.
Yeah.
So now complete abstinence, innocence, is really hard to, because it goes against kind of the broken human feeling, passion, whatever, when that passion is broken.
I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more, but that union is it's sacramental. So it is from, it's heavenly, when in the right time, place, manner, all those things. And so we can't have that on earth in some ways. We have a glimpse of it, but it's never perfect.
That perfect relationship between husband and wife, between man and woman, between God and human beings, that without the infusion of grace, there's going to be something still broken.
Something a little off.
Something a little off. So that he says, fine, we've gotten rid of that. And that's why I said this book was all about you, but I'm starting to realize it's kind of about me too. Because
you would find a way to sneak in there.
It's really not about you, Jonathan, because here's a big old dose of Father Jeff. It's talking about this complete abstinence and for then those who embrace the lifelong promise of chastity or celibacy, whether it's a religious brother or sister or an ordained priest, that what that is it really is, here is a sign of something that was lost in the kingdom. That there is a sign of love that is complete and open and total, and in a sense puts to death those earthly passions for the sake of that kingdom that is not experienced here.
Right.
So it's not like okay, this is good, that is bad, but it's a sign of the kingdom that maybe was lost and is yet to come. And otherwise, celibacy, the life of a priest, makes no sense.
No, it's just oppression.
If it's just like, we're going to quell this thing inside and not follow after what is a natural human desire and inclination, it makes no sense. If there isn't something spiritual that is being pursued. If it isn't a sign of a deeper, greater kind of love that even marriage points to. I mean, both of these, celibacy and matrimony, point to the same thing and come at it from two different ways.
Very true.
So let's talk about a little bit then about what. So there are very few people who are going to embrace the former, complete abstinence. So what we do is we stir up all of these things in people, and he talks about through the poets and the novelists, and boy, we see that today now in movies, music, TV shows, all of these things. Stirs up the romantic. Yeah. Let's just stir up that romance, or stir up the passion, stir up the different things. Being in love is the only respectable ground for marriage. That marriage can and ought to render this excitement permanent, and that marriage which does not do so is no longer binding. What do you have to think about that, Jonathan?
Oh my gosh. Well, he does put being in love in quotations.
Right. He says it's an experience, the experience of being in love.
And we have our marriage enrichment nights here at St. Charles, which we have one coming up at a certain date that I'll
next
put
month.
Here. Next month. But I think one of the first one was about how the honeymoon doesn't just last forever. It's that whole excitement, the permanent excitement. There is nothing in this world that will keep you permanently excited and in those feel-good spots. There's nothing in this world that will do that.
Right. And nor is there something that continually crescendos, that gets, that does this for eternity. I mean, that's what eternity is.
Yep. When you get to heaven, that's when you're there.
That's right. Not here. Not going to be.
And even there, you're just at the highest. You can't go up any higher. So in heaven, it's just
Well, you do go higher. You eternally go higher.
Eternally, but
it's
we can't fathom. But in this world, you can't do that, and so. The what we try to attain through marriage, or thinking the whole adage of, well, marriage will fix our problems. It only compounds them.
Yeah.
It makes it messier because now there's legal stuff involved.
There's all this other stuff that's layered on top of that.
And so this is just, but it is the lie and the illusion that we fall into is that, oh, I'm in love, and love is this feelings, and it feels good, and I like being with you, and I love you so much.
And this is what we've been trained to feel. That is the grounds for marriage. If I don't feel that, then I shouldn't get married. And when I feel that, then that's a sign that this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. So it's like, first of all, marriage is built totally on feelings. It's like this passion, this desire, whatever. And that those feelings ought to be permanent. Yep. I mean, that's the other lie that we tell ourselves, that this is what I want to hold on to for the rest of my life. And that's why I want to link myself to you, because I want to hold on to you for the rest of my life, because you make me feel this way for the rest of my life. And then when that doesn't happen,
it's no longer binding.
Well, now I've, let's put it in quotes, fallen out of love. So you fall into love, you fall out of love. And it's just this rocky, unstable, I don't want that.
No. But a big problem, I mean, that's what our movies and TV shows and songs, they tell us, those are our marriage goals. I want to have a love like that. Yeah. I want that kind of a relationship. Where it's not always rainbows and butterflies.
Not always. Sometimes it's
compromise. That moves us along. I just quoted a song.
Burrs under the saddle. Sometimes that's what it is.
It is. But that's why, and we've talked about it, love is not a feeling. It's not anything else. You choose to love someone, and you choose to work in sacrifice. There's every day. There's a moment that Genevieve asked me to do something or do something else, and it's like, do I choose to sacrifice what I'm doing for her, or do I not?
Genevieve, you are Jonathan's burr under his saddle. He doesn't deny it. There it is. And
I've said many times,
he's a big old burr under yours.
She is the cross by which I will get to heaven.
Look at that. Then we go into this philosophy. He starts talking about philosophy, and so let's break this one apart, because this paragraph can be a little chunky. So the whole philosophy of hell, he says, rests on the recognition that one thing is not another thing. Okay, that's true. That's a true statement. A is not B. That these are two different things. They're separate.
My shoe is not your watch.
Exactly. Two very different things. And he says that one self is not another self. Also very true. So he then takes this one step further. Then my good is not your good. That those are completely separate. Do you see what he's doing here? He's creating this very, not even a relativist idea, but a very subjectivist notion that everything is really all about me. And my experience is completely different from your experience, which means there's nothing that holds us together. Totally separate. So we're really beginning to move into a sort of nihilism, which is the philosophy of atheism. That there is no meaning, there's nothing outside of us, there's nothing that binds us together, there's nothing real. It is really that nothingness, that there's nothing. And that's where the world, I believe, is tending. And the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, 20 years after this, predicted that that was going to be the number one problem in this new era going forward, that there would be an embrace of nihilism, a nothingness, a meaninglessness. And we see it over and over and over again. I mean, I think it is so true. When I read that, when I was in seminary and I read the documents of the Second Vatican Council and I was reading the whole thing about atheism, I thought it was overblown. I'm like, no, surely not. And
well, you grew up in Nebraska.
We're trying to erase all of these realities.
And a lot of your personal experience probably up to that point hadn't shown that.
That's true. Yeah, we have very strong values and whatnot here in the Middle West and all that good stuff. So anyway, all right, so if one gains something, then another must lose that something. So what he says, that in order for me to get bigger and to grow, I need to take from you. I need to take your space, your whatever. And even he says you see this in the natural world, where beasts absorb other beasts by eating them and consuming them. For us as devils, it means sucking the will and the freedom out of a weaker into a stronger. That if I can just control you, then now you're mine and you are no longer yours. And look at me, I have just doubled in size. I have gotten bigger.
To be means to be in competition.
Yeah, to exist means to be. So basically, it is the philosophy of dog eat dog. It is the dog eat dog world.
It's me or you.
Exactly. Everything. It's a fight. This is barbarism. This is not civility. This is what it is. It is everything is competition. That you must destroy the other. So now he flips it around. What is God's philosophy? What is this philosophy of heaven? Well, it's the continued. He said it's a contradiction. That things are many and yet they are one, and the good of oneself is the good of another, and he calls that love. That if I'm really going to, if my good is to want your good, and if we're aimed at this good, well, that's what love really is. Love isn't the feeling inside. Love is the
willing the good of the other. I think that's the catechism is the definition.
Wanting the good of the other. Yeah. It is the wanting of the good of another. That is love. And he says, so even God himself he claims to be not just one, but three in one, so that he can somehow set the whole world on the notion that you can be many and yet one. And so there's this idea of, and he goes on to talk about the organism and it's the words of St. Paul, that the body is one with many members, and though the members are many, they are one, and when one part is hurting, the whole body hurts, and that there really is this unity without needing to be in competition. That you don't need to be in competition. There are examples. The devil can point out all of these examples of how the world is in competition. But there's also plenty of examples that demonstrate where the world is not in competition, but is working together as a whole.
And usually the ones where the world is in competition is where you see the chaos and the disruption and the horrible things that happen in the world.
Right. Yeah, or it's twisted in such a way that it appears to be worse than maybe it actually is. And so it's deciding how you're going to see this and what you're actually seeing. So now he moves into sex itself. So let's talk about this thing that is sex. It is a method of reproduction. So he says sex might have been, from our point of view, quite innocent. So remember, this is the evil point of view. It might have been just one more way that a stronger could dominate and prey upon the weaker. And he uses the example of the spider. He says, in nature, spiders do this all the time. They couple, the bride and the groom do their thing, and then the bride eats the groom and consumes him. And then she has her babies, and they continue to eat his carcass.
Same with the praying mantis.
Yeah, it's just like that, isn't it? There's a number of critters in the world that kind of do that. And humans are not supposed to. But, this is not a thing. But it happens all the time. I mean, this is what we see, one of the sad realities is the high prevalence of sex trafficking that continues to go on through the world. Many people, I don't think, realize that Nebraska often sits at the crossroads of that. I mean, Nebraska also kind of sat at the crossroads, and maybe still does, I don't know, kind of on the drug highway.
Right. That
you're right here at the crossroads of America, and so that makes for a lot of potential for bad things to happen. And there are high cases of sex trafficking in the state, in coming through, passing through here, where people are treated as commodities and bought and sold, and nobody ever knows it because it just doesn't get the attention that it needs.
No, yeah, it just happen. You don't think of it happening around here.
Right.
And the thing is I-80 goes from the West Coast to the East Coast, and so you don't hear about it happening here because kids will get picked up, women will be picked up, and they're several states away within hours.
Exactly.
And so it's just a very scary, but it's the reality.
It's a tragic reality, but this happens. You see the depth of the evil when sexuality is treated as something not as a coupling and a mutual expression of love, but as an expression of dominance and consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole world of pornography, the whole world of sexual fetishism. It all swallows that and makes the other person an object to be treated, enjoyed, dominated.
I think you said consumption. That is the perfect word. You are taking over them.
Yep, I'm consuming you I'm using you for my purposes.
And that person does lose something.
It's
and using what
horrible.
we've used in the book so far, you are taking something from them that was not yours to take.
So that is what the evil one desires sex to be, that it is something that you use as a dominating thing over another. And so he talks about that the enemy takes this sexual relationship and he infuses it with affection. Mm-hmm. And then you have children that become the offspring of this union, and a family which, like the organism, only worse, for the members are more distinct yet also united in a more conscious and responsible way. And the whole thing drags in the concept of love. Mm-hmm. So the evil one hates the family, because the family is a reflection of God himself.
Right. Persons
united in love that generate persons. Mm-hmm. And when you have this relationship where we are very different, but we sacrifice for one another, we love for one another, life springs out of that creation, there's a bond that is formed. The family becomes the basic building block of society. It's the basic building block of creation and the world. It's a reflection of God. So if the enemy wants to attack anything,
family,
he's going to attack the family. So when we look around at society today and you see how the family is attacked in so many different ways. So we can talk about economic inequality, mm-hmm. where families are made where in today's society it is exceptionally hard for a couple to support themselves without both members working full-time and having to make ends meet.
Right.
Where even if one of them wanted to stay home and raise children, it's becoming more and more an impossibility.
Yep.
That there is then the competition between the careers of husband and wife. That now the competitive aspect enters into that. Contraception and abortion, where we get in there and we literally take away the life that families can generate, and we make that seem now a convenience and not a destruction to what it means to be family. The tearing apart of families through divorce or through abuse or through domestic violence. That all of these things that can get in and disrupt what a family is. Changing the whole meaning of family. That it's no longer even a unit of husband and wife capable of generating children, but it could be the union of anybody, whether or not they are capable of generating children.
Right.
So the very understanding of what family is gets attacked and changed. And so it goes. I mean, you can just see how family and family life is just constantly being hammered by the evil one, by society, to destroy it, to change what it is completely. Family can be anything. And when it's anything,
it's nothing.
It's nothing. loses its meaning. Loses its meaning. Back to the philosophy of hell. Let's take away the meaning. Let's make it nothing. And that's what hell is. Then everything becomes competition.
But Father Jeff, me and my 12 dogs are a wonderful little family.
That's another attack on the family.
It is.
I don't want to offend anyone. But here we go.
And you have a dog.
And I have a dog.
That you
love deeply. But here's the deal. These are not your fur babies. They are not members of the family. They are creatures that you have accepted the stewardship and care of that are nothing like a human child or a human being. And as much as I love and care for a dog in my life, he is not my family. So it starts to blur things because of course there's affection and of course there's responsibility and even sacrifice for, and there's something very good about taking care of a creature because that's what God does for us. So there's a real thing that's spiritual about that. But when we then try to take that and elevate it and make it more than it is, well, that is an attack on the family, whether or not you see that or even desire it. It's like, well, I don't want to attack the family, but the very act of making something not human a family member is an attack on the family.
Right. And not to discredit the time you've invested in your dog. And
absolutely.
The emotional attachment you have.
These are all
or
good
like
things.
You said, you love Staples.
These are good things. I do.
But it does not
I love you, Staples. I'm sure you're watching right now.
But it does not replace
He does not
family.
No, it's not. A dog can never be a child. Never. I know I've compared your kids to my dog several times, and I think it's hilarious. But that's my little way of attacking your family.
We just lost half our viewers, but that's okay.
I love your animals, love your dogs, not so much your cats, but hey.
I'm allergic to cats, so I really don't love your cats.
There you go. So, let's keep it. What time is it? Let's keep going. We're running out of time, Jonathan. So this happily married couple in love, and he talks about them being made one flesh. Now, here comes a harsh reality that I think a lot of people would rather not admit, but we can't skirt by it. The truth is, when it comes to sexual intercourse, whenever a man lies with a woman, whether they like it or not, a transcendental relation is set up between them, which must be eternally enjoyed or eternally endured.
Woof.
God has made sexual intercourse not just a contract of bodies, something that your bodies do together, but it is something also that involves the mind, the psychology, the emotions, even the soul. That what happens to the body happens to the soul, and vice versa. There was a very interesting thing that I remember being in high school, and one of the famous pro-life speakers was talking to us, had been invited to an assembly. And she did a lot of work with people who have gone through post-abortion counseling kind of the healing that goes with that. And so she was talking to us about sexuality and just, how as human beings we seem to do everything we can to mess up sexuality. That gets us then into these very broken situations. And one of the things that she pointed out, she said, you don't even know sometimes how your bodies have been built to support monogamy and marriage. That she said, when a couple has intercourse for the first time, something happens within those bodies that create a stamp, an impression, that there is something that helps to hold that bond together. So in that first sexual experience, there is an impression, there's a bonding that happens that is meant to help you stay connected to this person, which is why the culture of hooking up or having immature sexual relationships in high school or college, prom night, whatever it is, that you have this fling, your bodies, your psychologies, your emotions are pouring chemicals to reconstruct your brain in that moment so that you have a tighter bond with this person. Your first sexual experience is going to have the tightest bond. Your next sexual experience has a less tight bond, and so on and so forth. And they're meant to build upon one another to form that union. So when the more promiscuous one is, the harder it is to be faithful. Because now your body has not been trained to cooperate with your will. So having many sexual partners makes it harder one day to enter into marriage.
And there's so much physiology that goes into it.
Yes. And psychology.
Yeah, so was it Vicky Thorne?
Yes. That's Vicky Thorne.
Vicky Thorne, phenomenal.
Look her up on the internet.
She explains so much of, when the woman is fertile, she releases pheromones.
Yeah.
That make the husband be more attracted to her.
Right.
And there's so much that goes into sex that it's supposed to bring us together.
Absolutely.
And so when we put it in a non-marriage situation, that's why some people stay in abusive relationships, because they love the other person, and it's all hinged on sex. There's nothing outside.
They've trained themselves to want and to desire something that even their bodies aren't wanting and desire. It's a whole messed up thing because the language of the body is meant to be the language of the soul, and the bodies coming together in sexual union are meant to say to one another, we are locking in. We are going to start building a tight relationship here to hold us together. And when we don't intend that, we are messing up ourselves because we're doing something and saying something to the other that is creating a real relationship. I have literally given something of myself to this other person. I cannot tell you how many counseling situations I have had with people, many of them women, who regret later on, as they're older now, looking back in their lives, that time when I was in high school, that time when I was in college, I thought I loved someone, I thought they loved me, I gave myself to them in some way, and that still is a wound within me, because there's a piece of me that was impressed upon. Like, that person is still with me in my psychology, and there's a part of me that's gone.
And it's true.
It's true. It's like, yes, that is why you are having these feelings and this brokenness, and so now we have to figure out how to heal that and work through that, but we have worked against our nature.
Right.
We could go on forever about this.
Yeah, it's...
I think I've talked about this before, I saw that also, a truth of that, written into the Harry Potter novels, that the idea of the bad guy, Voldemort, that in order to save himself, he broke his soul into seven different pieces, and he put that soul into different objects or creatures or whatever to protect it. But when he did that, he gave it away so that someone else could take a piece of his soul and destroy it. Once he had given it away, he lost power over it. And so if you ever give your soul to someone, you want to make sure that they are not going to destroy it, misuse it, or do anything that would harm it. Which is why the only way sexuality works is in the monogamous relationship. I trust you enough that you are not going to hurt or break me when I give myself to you.
Which is so different than what our culture and society tell us.
Sexuality is not about that. It's all about the feeling. Oh, it's all messed up. So, the enemy designs marriage to be faithful, fertile, and the desire for the good of the other, goodwill. And that's what marriage is based on, regardless of the feelings, because the feelings are going to come and go. We've said that I don't know how many times near the law of undulation. The feelings are going to come and go. So, Jonathan, the evil one, I mean, if we were to sum this up, the evil one wants us to either eschew marriage, like marriage, don't need it because I can have love any which way I want it, don't need to do this, or I can just build up my intentions that I can then use my marriage and say, all things are possible. We're married now, we can do whatever.
Oh my gosh.
So either we don't need to be married because marriage is a false construct put upon us, or we can then switch it and say, well, marriage, now we can do whatever we want to one another, with one another, etc., etc. So it just pulls you in two extremes.
And both make marriage nothing.
Both make marriage nothing. So, mine is really a boring title. I just simply titled it The Reality of Marriage. I guess it goes against that nihilism, the nothingness of marriage. The reality of marriage.
I am still having trouble coming up with something.
Jonathan.
But I will put love, marriage, selfless.
That's a terrible title.
It is a terrible title. But it is what it is. That is.
This is what happens when you fall asleep in random places and.
But it is selfless.
It is.
And love, so like to.
It's true. It's just a bad title.
Well, the reality of marriage is.
It's a bad title. Maybe it's because this is so deep. It's so hard to give a good.
It is. Well, you can't. I don't want to make a joke of it.
Exactly.
Well, that's no laughing matter. Ha ha ha. That's my title.
There it is. All right, you guys have a great Thursday, and
I'll fall asleep in my bed at a reasonable time tonight.
Watch him fall asleep right now in front of you. Bye bye.